Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be discussing excoriation and trichotillomania. Trichotillomania is known as hair pulling or hair picking, and excoriation is known as skin picking. So these can sometimes overlap, sometimes they're completely separate for people, sometimes people experience one and not the other, sometimes people experience both. It really depends on the person. So today I want to talk about what these disorders are. They're in the DSM-5 TR, which is the most recent diagnostic manual, and I am in grad school for social work, so I have been educated on these topics, but am also in no way a professional in these topics either. I also want to talk about how trauma plays a part with these diagnoses and the triggers. I got diagnosed 2 years ago. While I still struggle sometimes with hair pulling and skin picking, it very much has decreased from when I was 18, from when I was 20, from when I was 21, and I have a lot of resources that help me to not engage in these activities that are extremely addictive. Trauma played a big part in my experience with skin picking and hair pulling. I experienced extortion, which I will put my story video right here. I also made a video about what is sextortion, which I will put here as well. I also made a video that discusses how my sextortion led to self-harm, and so I will also put that here. My experience with these diagnoses stemmed from trauma and stemmed from having a perpetrator who used self-harm on me as a tactic to keep me silent and to keep me obeying orders, and that is how my self-harm ended up manifesting later on when I stopped cutting and using other self-harm techniques, self-mutilation techniques. Triggers can happen in so many different ways. If you're reminded of the victimization, if you see someone who was a part of the victimization, and these can end up really influencing how much you are skin picking or hair pulling. It's a really difficult topic to discuss, but I will also be making a video that talks about how to stop picking, because I think that is one of the most important topics regarding these diagnoses, and is something that I've struggled with for a long time. And I want you to know that if you experience or have been diagnosed with excoriation and trichotillomania, or one or the other, you can overcome this, you can stop doing these things, but it really is an individual journey. It takes time, it takes healing, it takes therapy, rather either traditional or non-traditional, and I'm here for you, and you're not alone. And there are a lot of different support groups and a lot of different resources that are available. I will be talking more about that in the how to stop picking video that I will be releasing next week, so definitely stay tuned for that. I didn't have this terminology until honestly within the last year or two, and because of that I didn't know that it was normal, and I didn't think of it as self-harm. I just thought of it as trying to perfect my skin, perfect my hair, and try to make everything perfect, when in reality I was doing the exact opposite. And when I finally found out that this was something that a lot of people struggled with, I felt less alone, but I also felt like, oh, here we go, another diagnosis, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. Being diagnosed with mental illnesses and things of that sort is difficult, because while it's can be affirming and validating, it can also make you feel like you're not good enough, or there's something wrong with you, and those type of things as well. So it was definitely a double-edged sword for me to figure out that this was something that I was struggling with. One of the hardest things for me was the fact that a lot of my family members and friends who also didn't know that this was a thing continued to say, hey, stop doing that, and would swat my hand away, or try to get me to stop doing these things, especially when they saw it, which at the time I thought that could be helpful. But looking back, and where I am now, I realized that that only made me feel shame with what I was doing when I already had shame about it, and it also made it more difficult because the craving of going through and doing those things with my hands were stopped, and it's something that you have to finish, or it's like this feeling that you haven't completed it. And so then I would just distance myself from people and finish doing what I was doing, whether it be skin picking or hair pulling somewhere else. So I would either excuse myself and go to the bathroom and do it that way, but it just created a lot more shame and frustration, and it didn't end up being helpful, because when someone is dealing with this kind of stuff, they have to be the reason that they stop. Other people aren't going to be the reason that someone stops. You have to find that in yourself. No one else has the ability to make you stop doing those things. I had to forgive myself for doing this to my body. I had to realize that it wasn't my fault, that I wasn't, there was nothing wrong with me. I just needed to figure out healthier coping skills.